My dear Earth friends, I am happy that I can share a message with you once again. Today I would like to discuss a trap that Earth people frequently fall into, and a trap that I have repeatedly fallen into. The trap is assuming that anyone who disagrees with you is automatically dumber than you are. Or alternatively, that a person who disagrees with you is less informed than you are, or is less spiritually evolved than you are, or is morally inferior to you, they're virtue signaling, or racist, etc. This is really convenient for the ego, because it lets it maintain the self-image that you are the smartest, or the most informed, or the most spiritually evolved, or the most morally upstanding person. And you're certainly better than that person who disagrees with you, who is clearly dumber or less informed or less evolved or less moral than you are. Your ego really likes feeling superior to others, and it likes thinking that your current worldview is correct and indeed is superior to the worldview of others. But the problem, of course, is that sometimes a person who disagrees with you actually isn't dumber, or otherwise inferior to you. In fact, it's a common ego defense to label smarter or better informed or more evolved people than yourself as actually being inferior to yourself. However, doing so means that you learn a lot less things than you could be learning, and you miss opportunities to dispel illusions and misconceptions you might have. And most likely you have those. One example of this phenomenon is, imagine a person on the other political side. Notice how you're probably picturing someone who is likely inferior to you in some way. Even though there certainly are people on the other political side who are smarter than you, who are more well-read than you, who donate more money to charity than you, who spend more time doing volunteer work, etc. That very thought, that some people on the other political side are superior to you in some way, may be vaguely uncomfortable to you. Is that vaguely uncomfortable for you? I invite you to take a moment to feel your body. That's the crux. Your ego is trying to meet your surface level needs, and immediate psychological well-being is one of them. Hence people's tendencies to assume that people who disagree with them are inferior to them. Yes, this contributes to the resistance of sleepers to wake up. But spiritual people do it too. A lot of spiritual people are implicitly assuming that people who disagree with them are just less spiritually evolved than them and therefore wrong. They don't say that out loud, but that's what a lot of spiritual people secretly think. Or spiritual people might make selfing rules that then prove that they're superior to others. For example, a vegan might think that anyone who isn't a vegan automatically isn't as spiritually advanced as them. I'm not saying all vegans think like this, I'm saying some do. Or a dedicated yoga practitioner might think that anyone who isn't doing yoga or something similar automatically isn't as spiritually advanced as them. Or someone might think that anyone who meditates less or does fewer spiritual retreats automatically isn't as spiritually advanced as them. Or a person with a following might think that anyone who doesn't have at least as big a following as they do, automatically isn't as spiritually advanced as them. Or a spiritual person might suppress and ignore everything that isn't happy, and share only the most happy and most spiritual moments on social media, and act in a stereotypically spiritual way. And then that person might think that anyone who isn't as good at performing spirituality as them automatically isn't as spiritually evolved as they are. Even though actual spiritual masters aren't just someone who conforms really closely to the spiritual stereotype. Actual masters are typically non-standard in some way, or have some non-standard belief or beliefs. So, how do we avoid this trap where people assume that everyone who has a different worldview than them is inferior to them? First of all, you are good enough already, even if someone else is smarter or more informed than you are. Smarter or better informed or more spiritually advanced people than you existing doesn't somehow make you not good enough. In fact, the ability to open-mindedly listen to people with different perspectives, and to occasionally learn from people and change your mind, is a quality in and of itself. It's only the ego that thinks that never changing your opinion is somehow strong or good. If we're talking about politics, don't only look at the dumbest and most extreme people on the other side. Yes, that is egoically pleasing, but there are smart, well-informed, reasonable people on the other side too. Yes, Almost certainly there are uninformed and morally reprehensible people on the other political side who have very dumb reasons for being on that political side. But that doesn't mean that everyone on that political side is like that. Just because some people on the other political side are idiots or evil, doesn't mean that they're all like that. Try to be fair. So don't just blindly accept any argument that supports your worldview, even if it may be unreliable or poorly argued, while being extremely critical about any argument that doesn't fit your worldview. Similarly, don't just blindly accept any argument that makes you feel good, even if it may be unreliable or poorly argued, while being extremely critical about any argument that makes you feel bad. And acknowledge that people are different, and it's not always the case that if only that other person was as smart or well-read or as spiritually advanced or as moral as you were, that they'd think exactly like you did. People who disagree with you aren't just a dumber clone of yourself. Instead, different people are actually different. Other people might genuinely think in different ways. They're not just exactly you, except dumber. They're not just exactly you, except less spiritually evolved. A mistake I made back in my selfish days was that I thought that psychopathic, cold-blooded, self-interested logic was all there was, and the rest was all just weakness and nonsense. From my perspective, I could out-logic and out-debate literally anyone. I disregarded everything that wasn't psychopathic logic as invalid, and then could win any discussion on my home turf. But of course, I was just looking through a very narrow lens. I was just subjectively and even irrationally labeling the thing I like as being the one valid thing. But there was never any objective reason for why my thing actually was the only valid thing. That's a bit of an extreme example, but different people put different weights on things like rationality versus emotions, on being kind versus speaking the truth, on the importance of safety versus freedom, etc. Different people are different.